Welcome to Christian Podcast, where we look at the world and our own lives through a Christian lens. Today, we're diving into something you might not expect. We're going to explore the surprising ethical framework of one of the world's most famous capitalists, Warren Buffett. And we're going to see how it lines up with some very old, very powerful ideas about wealth and responsibility. So yeah, we're going to look at this secular icon, right? One of the wealthiest men on the entire planet, and see if his life's work actually reveals a kind of blueprint, one that aligns deeply with these timeless principles of faith, wealth, and what it means to be responsible. I mean, probably not, right? He's not the first name that comes to mind. But what if? What if behind all those billions, there's this profound, almost spiritual framework of gratitude and service? What if his whole approach to money is actually a masterclass in stewardship? Let's dig in and uncover this really surprising connection. Okay, so where does a worldview like this even begin? Well, for Buffett, it all starts with one single powerful emotion: gratitude. And not gratitude for his own skill or his own genius, but for the sheer, unearned luck of his circumstances. And believe me, this starting point, it changes absolutely everything. Just listen to the raw honesty in his own words. He calls it drawing a ridiculously long straw. He doesn't see his success as something he was entitled to. He sees it as winning what he famously calls the ovarian lottery. There's a real humility in that. And right here, this is the key connection for our discussion today. What Buffett, the secular investor, calls luck, theologians have another word for: grace, an unmerited, unearned gift. And that little shift in perspective from entitlement to gift, it creates this powerful moral obligation. The focus moves from what have I earned to what will I do with what I've been given. And boom, there it is. This quote shows you exactly what that gratitude leads to. It's not just a nice, passive feeling. No, it is a direct call to action. For Buffett, his incredible fortune comes with an equally incredible responsibility to everyone else, to all the folks who didn't draw that same lucky straw. So this powerful sense of gratitude, it leads directly to the absolute core principle of his entire framework: stewardship. And this is a radical reframing of what it even means to be wealthy in the first place. This is the central idea, the whole ball game. Buffett doesn't see himself as the owner of his fortune. He sees himself as a temporary manager, a steward. The wealth isn't really his. It's a social resource that's been placed in his hands for a time for the common good. Just think about these two mindsets for a second. The owner, they're focused on accumulation, control, passing it down. But the steward, the path Buffett has taken, is all about distribution, responsibility, and making sure that wealth flows where it's needed most, instead of just being hoarded in a big pile. And this is not just some nice theory he talks about. He puts his money where his mouth is. Just recently, he gave away shares worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And his reason? He said he wanted to step up the pace of his giving, to make sure those resources are used effectively by his kids' foundations while they are at their peak experience and wisdom. And you gotta love his practical wisdom here. A true steward has to trust others. He's empowering the next generation to solve the problems of their time, instead of trying to control everything from beyond the grave. In a way, it's a real act of faith in the future. So, okay, we've got these really big, high-level principles of gratitude and stewardship. But what does that actually look like in day-to-day life? Well, this is where it gets really, really interesting. I mean, his personal habits are legendary, aren't they? He's living in the same house he bought back in 1958, grabs McDonald's for breakfast. It's a lifestyle the sociologist Max Weber once called worldly asceticism. Basically, you work hard, you make money, but you live simply and modestly. It's not about being cheap. It's a core belief that wealth is a tool for a higher purpose, not for personal luxury. And right here, this is the why behind all of that moderation. Real, lasting fulfillment, it isn't found in what you own. It's found in what you do, in having a mission. And that is a profoundly spiritual insight that you hear echoed across so many faith traditions. This brings us to this powerful concept of a calling. The characters you see here, Tianzhu, they literally mean something like heaven's office or a divine vocation. And in the Protestant tradition, this means your work, it's your ministry, it's a moral duty. So for over 60 years, Buffett has gone about his work with a diligence that looks a lot less like a job and a lot more like a spiritual practice. And this whole ethical practice isn't just about money. It's about people. This quote, it reflects this radical equality this deep respect for human dignity that is really the bedrock of Christian social teaching. It's about seeing the inherent value in every single person, no matter what their title is. So let's bring this all together. How does it all fit? Well, Buffett's life, when you look at it this way, really illuminates a clear path from a very humble starting point to a life of truly immense impact. It really is this simple, and at the same time, this profound. Step 1, you acknowledge that what you have is a gift. Call it luck, call it grace. Step 2, that acknowledgement creates a sense of duty, of responsibility. And step 3, that duty is fulfilled by acting as a faithful steward, distributing those gifts for the good of others. This, right here, is Buffett's ultimate challenge to all of us. There's a story that he was inspired by Alfred Nobel, the guy who invented dynamite. Nobel was horrified when he read his own premature obituary, which called him a merchant of death. So he changed his entire life and created the Nobel Prizes. The question isn't how much will you have, it's who will you be? So to sum it all up, what we see in Buffett's life is this incredible model where a deep sense of gratitude fuels a commitment to stewardship. And that commitment is then lived out every day through moderation and a powerful sense of purpose. And that leaves us with a final question. Because, stewardship isn't just for billionaires. We have all been entrusted with gifts, our time, our talents, our resources. So the real question for each of us is, what will we do with them? How will we manage the grace that we've been given? Thank you for listening. See you next time.